Hey guys, tonight we drift back to the dazzling, reeking, and oddly citrus-scented halls of Tudor England. The torches flicker, casting long shadows over velvet drapes. You're in the thick of the royal court, layers of brocade weighing down your shoulders, the buzz of gossip in your ears, and a faint but persistent stench wafting from somewhere unspeakable. Every breath is a gamble, and your only defense. A curled strip of orange peel tucked up your sleeve, pressed nervously to your nose like a secret prayer. The scent isn't just pleasant, it's essential. You pass sweating guards who haven't bathed in weeks, nobles who wear the same hose day after day, and chambermaids fresh from emptying chamber pots. The orange peel, sharp and slightly sweet, cuts through the mire like a blade. And let's be honest, it's either that or wretch. Your nose crinkles as you move through the throng, discreetly inhaling the peel's citrus zing again and again. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're still awake enough to find the comments section, post your location and the local time. It's always fascinating to see where and when you're listening in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're just another courtier trying not to faint. Around you, ladies murmur in French and Latin, their gloves stained faintly orange. A young boy delivers a tray of candied citrus, his eyes darting nervously toward the nearest noble. You recognize this ritual. Everyone has a peel, sometimes fresh, sometimes dried and artfully curled, occasionally soaked in rosewater or vinegar. It's not a snack. It's armor. And there's more to it than just survival. The Tudor court thrives on appearances. Carrying a perfectly curled orange peel, or tucking it into a perfumed pomander, signals both wealth and refinement. After all, imported oranges are rare, expensive, and prized. Just getting one means you have connections, or coin. Historians still argue whether this was pure status signaling or had deeper medicinal roots. You tuck your peel back into your sleeve as the Queen passes. Elizabeth I herself often carries scented gloves, and her courtiers, eager to flatter, mirror her preferences. A waft of neroli, a whisper of citrus, follows her like a ghost. In this world, smell is power. What makes it all stranger is how far the trend goes. You hear a man bragging that he presses orange oil into his boot leather. Another insists his dog wears a collar rubbed with peel to calm his humors. You stifle a giggle, though maybe he's not joking. In a time before plumbing, deodorant, or even daily laundry, orange peels are as close to a bath as most people get. The stink, though, is unforgettable. You once watched a banquet where 5 roasted swans were carried in, their scent immediately overwhelmed by the sour bite of sweat-soaked dancers and a breeze from the nearby cesspit. Someone fainted. Someone else swore it was the spice mix. You knew better. There's a reason why perfumed gloves, scented wristbands, and citrus-stuffed handkerchiefs are sold just outside court gates. The orange peel, so simple, becomes essential. And yet, not everyone approves. Some older courtiers scoff that it's a fad, something continental. You hear them mutter about proper English moss or lavender, not Spanish fruit. But the younger crowd? Oh, they're obsessed. They slice their peels into neat little spirals, fold them into scented satchels, and swap peeling techniques as if they were state secrets. Even the servants get in on it. You once caught a scullery maid sneaking a rind from the compost heap, tucking it into her bodice for later. You didn't blame her. The kitchens are the worst. You pass under a stone archway and catch a glimpse of yourself in polished armor, your reflection distorted, citrus in hand. You look tired. But also fashionable. There's something oddly soothing in the act of peeling itself, the slow curl, the soft spray of oil, the way it sticks faintly to your fingers. No wonder some courtiers find it almost meditative. Tonight, you'll sleep in a shared chamber with 5 others, their boots by the door and their breath thick with wine and mutton. The orange peel, tucked beneath your nose, is your only escape. You press it close, eyes closing, as the court murmurs on just beyond the stone wall. And as you drift, you realize, in Tudor England, the smallest things, an orange peel, a scent, a sigh, can mean the difference between elegance and embarrassment, between favor and exile. You wake up with a start, the scent of your orange peel long faded, and a snoring duke sprawled across the bench beside you. The Tudor palace never really sleeps, it just hums at a lower pitch after midnight. You shuffle to your feet, brush hay from your sleeves, and step back into the royal maze of corridors and courtyards, nose already twitching. The stench hits you before the sunlight does. You gag, quietly, of course. A courtier must always appear unbothered, even when the air reeks of boiled beef, unwashed underthings, and something vaguely fungal. The palace, for all its gilded portraits and marble arches, was built long before ventilation was fashionable. You step carefully over a puddle that might be spilled wine, or might not. Servants scurry past, holding their breaths. It's barely dawn, and already the scent of last night's banquet lingers like an unwanted guest. You reach the great hall, and it's no better here. The rushes, those supposedly clean straws spread over the floor, are soaked through with ale and worse. Someone once tried mixing rosemary into them for freshness. Now, all it smells like is beer and church pews. This is where the orange peel becomes more than fashion. It's survival. You pull yours from your sleeve, crush it slightly, and hold it close. The tang cuts through the miasma, sharp and clean. It's not perfume. It's a shield. Historians still argue whether the smell was truly that bad or just exaggerated in later writings, but you're here. You know. It's not hyperbole. It's horror in scent form. There's no plumbing in the palace. Human waste collects in cesspits below, and when the wind shifts just wrong, the entire west wing gets a reminder. You pass by a hallway that smells like wet dogs and cabbage stew, then another that reeks of fish and damp stone. In the ladies' gallery, it's a different nightmare. Scented oils drip from wig-lined hair. One lady smells like crushed lavender. Another like honey gone slightly off. The combination is dizzying. You retreat back into your orange peel. The stench isn't just inside. Step into the garden and you're hit with manure, musty fountains, and the unfortunate choice to grow garlic near the Queen's Walk. A bold gardener, that one. Possibly executed. You begin to understand why everyone carries something to sniff. Orange peels. Clove-studded apples. Vinegar-soaked cloth. Anything to overpower the everyday funk of Tudor opulence. You wonder if anyone ever smells nothing anymore, or if that's just a myth. Even the royals suffer. You once watched a prince bury his face into a fur sleeve laced with bergamot. He looked desperate. Another time, a duchess fainted during a dance, overcome by the stew of sweating partners and roast boar. But here's the twist, Tudor people believed bad smells caused disease. Miasma, they called it. Invisible poisonous airs that crept into your body and corrupted your blood. So orange peels weren't just for comfort. They were protection. Health armor. The belief was so strong that some physicians advised boiling citrus in vinegar and inhaling the steam. Others stuffed orange peel into masks, pouches, or even into their mouths while treating patients. It didn't work, of course, but they didn't know that. A fringe theory, whispered behind fans and pews, was that the Queen herself bathed in citrus water once a month. You can't prove it, but you have seen barrels of oranges delivered to her private apartments. Suspicious. Very suspicious. In the lesser halls, you spot courtiers with orange peel pendants hanging from neck chains. One particularly anxious lord wears dried peel sewn into his cuffs. He insists it calms his nerves. Another man boasts that his peel is from Seville, much richer, he claims. You resist the urge to laugh. Barely. Everywhere you go, the air tells a different story. And every person has their defense against it. The orange peel is the great equalizer, both common and luxurious, both fragrant and functional. You return to your chamber just in time to dodge the chamber pot procession. You breathe through your peel again. One final drag of citrus before the day begins. You're not sure if the orange peel actually protects you from disease. Historians still debate whether it made any difference at all. But you do know this: without it, life at court would be unbearable. And maybe, just maybe, that's why even the most hardened courtiers cling to their fragrant slivers like rosaries, because sometimes, a tiny bit of sweetness is the only thing standing between you and the rot. You're awake, barely, rubbing the sleep from your eyes as the scent of orange peel lingers faintly on your fingers. But you notice something new today, not just the usual courtier sniffing a sliver of citrus like it's sacred, but two ladies near the window comparing their peels, length, curl, and origin. Because now, it's not just about freshness. It's fashion. You sidle closer, pretending to admire the tapestry. One proudly declares hers is a Sicilian blood orange. The other waves a neatly coiled piece and says it's from the Algarve, thinner skin, stronger perfume, more refined. You roll your eyes, but quietly. This isn't just idle chatter. These peels are statements, and in the Tudor court, statements are survival. Suddenly, you're aware of your own. Is it too plain? Too thick? Should you have soaked it in rosewater last night? There's always something new. You've seen courtiers press peel into velvet pouches, lace it through hatbands, even sew dried pieces into ribbon cuffs. One daring fellow glued a full spiral to the edge of his collar, and the queen didn't blink, though that may have been the laudanum. Historians still argue whether these citrus customs were purely for show or if there were whispered medicinal reasons behind the rituals. After all, the Tudor court is never what it seems. You walk the length of the gallery, passing portraits and power players alike, and everywhere you turn there's a different variation of citrus chic. One young lord has braided orange zest into his beard. He claims it helps with matrimonial prospects. Another has a carved silver box that releases orange-scented vapor with every opening. You reach the privy chambers, where real secrets are whispered between retching nobles and servants scouring their boots. A maid leans in and tells you the Duchess has begun candied peels. She claims it calms her nerves and her digestion. You raise a brow. You'd heard she was storing them in her bodice like charms. You exit quickly, trying not to gag from the scent mix of candle wax, stale urine, and burning herbs. Back in the main hall, musicians tune their lutes while messengers scurry in. You notice the same trend among them: orange-stained fingertips, small pouches tucked at the hip. The orange peel isn't limited to the highborn anymore. It's spreading. Which, of course, ruins it for some. You pass a pair of older gentlemen shaking their heads at the commonness of it all. One sniffs disdainfully. It used to mean something. Now even stable boys reek of Valencia. Still, the obsession grows. Merchants along the Thames now offer peels pre-curled and scented, stored in wooden boxes with velvet linings. You can buy citrus like you buy gossip, delicate, curated, overpriced. And then there's the symbolism. You overhear a court poet waxing lyrical about the bitter sweetness of oranges, the flesh of foreign sons. You wonder if he's drunk. Probably. You pass a tapestry showing a noblewoman clutching a lemon in a silk-gloved hand. It's romantic, mysterious, and totally impractical. Lemons are even rarer than oranges, and twice as acidic. But that doesn't stop the court from copying the pose at every portrait sitting. You've seen it. You've posed it. You round the staircase and nearly crash into a page carrying a tray stacked high with peel curls, each neatly folded like parchment. He mutters something about a banquet centerpiece. Apparently the king's new mistress loves the color. You stop. This is how it spreads, through flotation, through display, through power. One favored noble makes a show of zesting an orange at a feast, and suddenly everyone must do the same. You remember the lord who got in trouble last week for not carrying a peel. The queen made a joke at his expense. He hasn't been seen since. You retreat to a quieter chamber, peel once again in hand. This one's different. smaller, softer. You inhale. And for a moment, you don't smell decay. You don't smell sweat or tallow or rotten rushes. Just citrus, light, sharp, foreign. It smells like elsewhere. You wonder, do these peels carry memory? Echoes of orchards in Spain, ships creaking with barrels below deck, gardeners whispering over delicate trees in glasshouses? Or is that just wishful thinking, born of court boredom and a desperate nose? Historians still debate the psychological effect of these scents in such environments. Did they truly soothe? Or simply offer the illusion of control? You tuck the peel away and step back into the noise, your posture just a little straighter, your step a little lighter. The stink will return, but for now, you have your armor. Your fragrance. Your tiny, curling status symbol. And tomorrow, you'll need a fresher one. You smell him before you see him. A musky cloud of sweat, roast meat, and something faintly medicinal announces King Henry VIII's entrance with all the subtlety of a cannon blast. The court straightens. You bow instinctively, and so does your stomach. Here he comes, wide-shouldered, thick-necked, eyes sharp beneath a velvet cap, dragging half a dozen courtiers in his wake like ships caught in royal undertow. You dare a glance upward and, there it is, an orange in his bejeweled hand, peeled just enough to suggest effort without the indignity of stickiness. King Henry's obsession with citrus is no secret. You've heard whispers that he orders oranges by the crate, demands them in sauces, perfumes, even powdered in toothpastes, though whether they help his gums is debatable, judging by his gritted smile. Historians still argue whether this royal citrus fascination was inspired by his various illnesses, gout, ulcers, bad breath, or simply a deep need to control his surroundings, one scented peel at a time. He waves his orange with the flair of a scepter. One lady faints from the proximity, not from swooning, you suspect, but from the clash of his cologne and whatever fish-based feast he just attended. You follow at a respectful distance as he strides toward the chapel, a trail of citrus zest and roast mutton oil lingering behind him. The chapel smells better than usual, thanks to the clove-studded oranges swinging from sconces like holy incense. Inside, Henry mutters something about divine fragrance, which may or may not be directed at God. You suppress a laugh. The man once threatened a bishop over improperly perfumed altar candles. Later, at the midday meal, he insists on orange-glazed quail. You've never seen a bird so confused. Next to it, candied peels lie in crystal dishes like precious jewels. A page leans in and quietly warns that stealing one has meant lost fingers. You remember the story. A cook's assistant snuck a segment from the king's personal stash. They say he disappeared, sent to the tower, or to the kitchens below the kitchens, where the rats are fat and the walls sweat grease. You once thought it was a myth. Now, you're not so sure. Henry chews with royal enthusiasm, sauce dripping down his beard. Between bites, he fondles the orange again, sniffing it theatrically. Around him, the entire table follows suit, each noble pretending they also find divine insight in the scent of imported citrus. One lord peels his slowly, fingers trembling with the effort not to appear eager. You watch as he dabs the juice behind his ears. A duchess does the same, pretending not to see. It's become a silent performance, scented competition played out between silver goblets and gold-threaded sleeves. You glance down at your own orange. It's smaller than theirs, slightly bruised. You tuck it away. There's no point trying to impress when the king has a fruit merchant on speed dial, or whatever the 16th century equivalent is. Still, there's something admirable in the absurdity of it all. In a court ruled by tempers and treachery, where a wrong glance can get you dismissed or dismembered, a simple orange becomes a kind of talisman. Sweet, bitter, and dangerously symbolic. Historians still debate whether Henry truly believed in the medicinal power of citrus, or whether it was simply another indulgence in his endless parade of whims. You suspect it was both. The man once believed a special diet of roast meats and peacock wine would cure his melancholy. He also believed in Bullen had 6 fingers. As the feast concludes, Henry retires to his private chambers, orange in hand, muttering something about freshness of spirit. You watch the courtiers scatter, some to prayer, some to plotting, all still clutching their own peels like relics. Outside, the sun is finally breaking through the clouds. You take a breath, the first clean one all day, and smell it, orange oil, clove, and wood smoke. And underneath, always, the sour tang of sweat and secrets. You peel a fresh strip for yourself. You deserve it, really. Because here in the Tudor court, citrus is more than scent. It's survival. And today, you survived Henry's table with your head, and your nose, still intact. You're standing in the armor gallery now, surrounded by ghostly suits of steel polished to an obsessive sheen. Helmets glare down at you like judgmental ancestors, and each one smells faintly of citrus. You lean closer to the open visor of a breastplate. Yes, there it is. The telltale whiff of dried orange rind. At first, you think it's a prank. But then you spot another, and another, curled peels tucked into elbow joints, folded into gorgets, wedged neatly beneath pauldrons. Turns out, it's not just fashion. It's function. When Tudor knights marched into tournaments or, heaven forbid, battle, they often wore layers of thick wool and leather beneath their armor. Imagine being wrapped in a metal oven, sweating through every pore, while unable to scratch your own nose. Smelling good, or at least less offensive, wasn't optional. It was essential diplomacy. You're not going to negotiate land rights with someone who smells like a boot fermenting in ale. And so, they packed their armor with whatever fragrance they could afford, lavender, rosemary, even sweet herbs. But orange peel? That was prestige. It meant you had connections. You could afford imports. You had taste, and the nerve to scent your chainmail. Historians still argue whether this was a widespread habit or just the quirk of a few particularly aromatic nobles. But you've seen too many citrus-stuffed cuirasses to doubt it now. You walk further down the gallery and overhear two young squires debating peel placement. One swears by stuffing it behind the knee. The other insists the armpits are more effective. You try not to laugh. It's like watching a medieval cologne commercial, now with extra peel. It's not just men, either. Ladies' garments are lined with orange oil sachets, stitched into corsets, and hidden under jeweled belts. You once saw a woman lift her skirt hem just enough to reveal a line of peels tucked like coins along her stockings. You didn't ask questions. You just nodded, impressed. You move on, past the royal armorer, who's currently installing a pomander holder inside a viscount's new helmet. The man watching insists on Spanish orange only, claiming he can tell the difference blindfolded. You resist the urge to test him. Even horses aren't spared. One stable hand tells you he rubs dried peel into his mare's saddle blanket for serenity. The mare looks unimpressed. Still, it's better than what they used to do with garlic and tallow. Then there are the guards, poor souls who stand for hours in the same spot, rain or shine, surrounded by nobles with expensive hygiene habits and peasants without. One lets you in on his secret: he chews orange peel to stay awake and mask the stench. His breath is horrifying, but at least it's citrusy horrifying. You find your way to the training yard, where young lords practice swordplay. They grunt and swing, each movement followed by a puff of orange-scented air. You notice one with a slice pinned under his shoulder pad. With every strike, he smells fresher. It's almost elegant. Almost. A lady watches from the sidelines, fanning herself with a feathered fan laced in bergamot. It masks the aggression, she murmurs, half to herself, half to no one. You're not sure if she means the fighting or the sweating. Back inside, a tapestry shows a knight kneeling before his lady, an orange in his gauntlet. You think it's symbolic, courtship, maybe? Or just a subtle nod to the nose-burning reality of medieval flirtation. It's strange, how something so small becomes so essential. Orange peels in armor. In gloves. In boots. You wonder how many victories were won because someone could tolerate the smell of their own armpits for just 10 minutes longer. Historians love to talk about armor weight, about the politics of tournaments, about royal pageantry. But few talk about the fact that sometimes, the difference between glory and disgrace was a half-dried spiral of imported fruit. As you leave the gallery, a court musician passes you, humming and twirling a strip of peel like a ribbon. You smile. It's everywhere. In this world of grit and grandeur, of sweat and silk, orange peels are the true unsung heroes. You press yours to your lips and inhale. You smell survival. You follow the scent trail to the dim, earthy corridor beneath the palace, a stone tunnel cool and damp, lined with worn shelves and locked cabinets. You're not supposed to be here, but curiosity, like citrus oil, has a way of seeping through cracks. This is the apothecary's domain, and tonight, it smells sharper than usual. You crouch behind a barrel as the apothecary himself enters, a long-nosed man with a robe stained by centuries of questionable tinctures. He moves with the slow grace of someone who knows no one dares rush him. His fingers are stained orange. You watch as he opens a drawer and withdraws a bundle of dried orange peels bound in linen. He lays them gently on the table like holy relics. Then he begins the ritual, grinding peel into powder, mixing it with vinegar, rosewater, and a splash of something thick and brown that you'd rather not identify. He mumbles about balancing the humors. You catch words like melancholy, choler, and vaporous afflictions. You're not sure if he's talking to himself or to God. Possibly both. Historians still argue whether these concoctions had any true effect or were simply expensive wishful thinking. Either way, the belief was real. And belief, in Tudor England, was everything. You watch as he stirs the paste into a tin jar marked Plague Ward. That hits you in the chest. You've seen too many noses bleed this year, too many sudden deaths masked as fevers. Citrus, they say, keeps the rot away. Orange peels in the mouth. In the bed. In the grave shroud. The apothecary lights a candle and adds a drop of orange oil to the flame. The room fills with a sharp, bright scent that momentarily lifts the heavy air. For a second, it almost smells clean. Then he opens a second drawer, sachets for noblewomen, labeled with names you recognize. These aren't for healing. These are for masking. Scented silk squares soaked in orange blossom oil, folded into ornate tins. You're looking at the Tudor version of a perfume counter. It's oddly intimate. You realize you're witnessing what no courtier ever admits, how they maintain the illusion. You shift slightly and knock over a spoon. It clatters, and the apothecary freezes. He sniffs the air. You freeze too. Then, slowly, he returns to his work, muttering, "Rats get smarter every year." You don't move. You just breathe, through your orange peel, of course. You crawl backward and slip out before he can change his mind. Back in the hallway, you exhale. The orange scent clings to your cloak. You wonder what he'd say if he knew people were steeping orange peels in wine now, claiming it fortifies the liver. Or that others are hanging them in windows to attract God's favor. The line between medicine and magic is thin here. And Citrus walks it daily. You pass a servant girl wringing her hands. She asks if you know where to find the possessed doctor. You blink. She means the apothecary. She pulls a dried curl from her pocket, explaining in a whisper that her mistress has bad air in the blood. She wants it mixed with garlic and sage. You nod and pretend to know something. No one questions you. You're holding Citrus, after all. That gives you credibility. You exit into the courtyard, the cool air thick with the scent of smoke and oranges. Somewhere, someone's burning peel on a brazier. You follow the smoke trail and find a small gathering, 3 courtiers and a cook, eyes closed, inhaling like monks. No one speaks. The fire pops, sending little sparks of orange oil into the night. You've read about this, fumigation rituals. When plague nears or spirits seem restless, they burn citrus to cleanse the air. Science? Not really. But they swear it works. And who are you to argue with belief? Historians still debate whether these ceremonies were more about group comfort than genuine medical theory. But in a world where medicine bleeds into folklore, who can really tell? The cook opens his eyes and smiles. Better than rosemary, he says. You agree. You head back inside, up toward the royal chambers. As you walk, you pass servants delivering sachets, nobles sniffing rings soaked in zest oil, and one priest lighting a candle shaped like an orange. You don't ask. Because here, tucked within the linen folds of power and fear, orange peel isn't just scent. It's ritual. It's safety. It's superstition. It's hope. And you're starting to think it's the only thing keeping everyone sane. You're standing just outside the Queen's solar now, where the scent in the air is a more delicate mixture, citrus, rose, and the faintest trace of honeyed wine. It's the hour when gossip flows like ink, and you're here to listen more than speak. Inside, noblewomen gather around a gilded table, their fingers wrapped around tiny spoons, their mouths curled in careful smiles. But it's their breath you notice most, strangely sweet, almost minty, layered with something faintly orange. You've heard whispers of this. A courtly trick. Something to combat the unspoken embarrassment of rotting teeth. Tudor smiles are complicated. Behind the silk veils and courtly grins lies a dental battlefield. Sugar has recently arrived in England, and it's ravaging mouths with reckless abandon. The Queen herself is rumored to have teeth blackened by sweets, though no one dares confirm it aloud. So, orange peel enters again, this time in the form of breath fresheners. Crushed zest mixed with mint and vinegar, stuffed into little waxy lozenges, sometimes chewed, sometimes simply sucked during long speeches or painful dinners. You watch one lady discreetly slip one under her tongue as her suitor leans closer. Historians still argue whether these concoctions were effective or merely covered the symptoms of decay. But no one questions the social need. You've seen men lose favor for foul breath. You've seen women faint from the smell of a poorly cleaned goblet. This is no minor concern. This is diplomacy through nostrils. You find yourself offered a tiny dish of candied peel and clove. You accept, pressing it to your tongue. It's bitter, with a hint of sweetness. You imagine your own breath, now dressed in citrus armor. Somehow, you feel more composed. The conversation turns, as it often does, to romance. A lady-in-waiting confesses she wore a lemon balm perfume last week, and the Earl of Northumberland nearly proposed. Another rolls her eyes, it was the cut of your gown, not the scent. They giggle like girls, but you see the strategy underneath. In a world where even glances can be political, fragrance is part of the arsenal. One dowager countess tells the tale of a duke who wore orange-soaked gloves to mask the smell of his lower-born mistress. Apparently, it didn't work. The Queen recognized the perfume and had the mistress married off to a goat herder in Wales. You're not sure if that's true, but the room gasps anyway. It's not just the mouth. You've seen orange zest rubbed along the gums, stuffed into hollow teeth, even mixed with vinegar to make mouth rinses. One particularly desperate courtier once swished with orange water before kissing the Queen's hand. She fainted. No one knows if it was flattery or fumes. You leave the solar, walking past a maid polishing a silver mirror. She hums and chews on a strip of peel. For the breath and the nerves, she says with a shrug. You nod. It's become the catch-all answer. Back in the hallway, you hear the Queen's physician advising another lady to crush orange peel with crushed pearls, to brighten the teeth. You wince. That can't be good for the enamel, if there's any left. Yet, there's something endearing about this court's belief that a bit of orange zest can fix what even the finest dentists, all two of them, could not. It's wishful thinking disguised as elegance. And isn't that the court in a nutshell? Historians still puzzle over how such tiny rituals held such sway, but you've lived it now. You know. It's not just about cleaning the breath, it's about masking the fear. Of illness. Of shame. Of being cast aside for the wrong scent. You pause by a window. Below, in the orchard, you spot gardeners gathering windfall oranges with reverence. You think of how far that fruit has come, how many ships, how many storms, just to land on some lady's tongue for a moment's comfort. You breathe out slowly. Your own breath, sharp with citrus and something deeper, survival, drifts into the cool air. For today, you smell acceptable. You're tucked into the shadow of a tapestry now, half listening to a group of courtiers squabble in hushed voices just down the corridor. You weren't planning to eavesdrop, but then someone says the words, "Orange boy," and your ears perk up like a hound sniffing meat. There's always a story in the palace. This one. It begins, apparently, with a boy no older than 12, low-born, sharp-eyed, fleet-footed, assigned to the queen's kitchen as a citrus runner. Officially, he's tasked with fetching peel for the perfumers and herbalists. Unofficially, he's a favorite of half the ladies at court. His secret? He can slice an orange in a single, unbroken spiral and tie it into a knot with one hand. That, and he never speaks. Not once. Not even under pressure. Historians still argue whether orange boys, like him, were common in royal households, or if this is the sort of tale that grows wilder with every retelling. But the whispers say he stole an entire Valencia orange from the queen's private stash, and lived. You lean closer as the story unfolds. Apparently, one night, during a particularly sticky summer ball, the boy slipped into the queen's apothecary room and made off with a full, untouched orange. Not just peel. Not dried. Not medicinal. Whole. Ripe. Glowing like forbidden treasure. He was caught, of course. Nothing escapes the queen's steward. He was dragged before a room full of nobles and servants, orange still warm in his hand, juice dribbling from the corner of his mouth. Everyone expected execution. At best, the stocks. At worst, the tower. Instead, the queen asked him why. He said nothing. She asked again. He finally lifted the fruit, smiled faintly, and said, "I just wanted to smell something real." Silence fell like frost. And somehow, that answer spared him. She laughed. A strange, sharp laugh. Ordered him cleaned up and made her official citrus assistant. Orange boy, they call him now. He wears better shoes than most minor lords. You've seen him once, sitting on a stair, legs swinging, carving peel into little flowers with a surgeon's precision. You nodded. He nodded back. You liked him immediately. Of course, not everyone's pleased. Some mutter that he's a spy. Others say he's a bastard child of someone important, hidden in plain scent. A few claim he speaks only to ghosts. You suspect none of these are true, but all of them could be. That's court life. You hear another voice chime in, an older gentleman claiming the boy was cursed with olfactory gifts. Supposedly, he can detect lies based on how people smell. You try not to laugh. That would make him the most overworked soul in the palace. And yet, it does explain how he always avoids the poisoner. You step out from behind the tapestry, continuing your slow walk. As you turn the corner, you nearly trip over something at your feet. A neatly tied coil of orange peel, fresh, unbitten, resting on the stone like a dropped note. You pick it up. It smells rich, almost floral, and unmistakably foreign. Seville, perhaps. Or a blend. Too good to be from the kitchen. You glance around. The corridor is empty. You tuck it into your sleeve. Historians still argue over the meaning of such tokens. Was it just a discarded snack? A gesture of favor? Or something coded? You once heard of a duchess who sent messages hidden in citrus zest carvings, letters etched so finely into peel that only heat revealed them. One burned herself trying to decode it too quickly. Love, espionage, and fruit, the holy trinity of Tudor danger. Later that evening, as the court gathers for a subdued poetry reading, very polite dozing, you spot the boy again. Perched behind a pillar, watching everyone. He sees you. Then sees the peel in your hand. He smiles. You smile back. And in that moment, you're no longer just a courtier. You're part of something quieter. Stranger. Older than fashion and more human than protocol. You're part of the orange story. It starts with a cough. Dry. Sharp. Then another. You look up from your place by the chapel door and see a man gripping the wall, face pale, sleeve pressed to his lips. You don't need to see the blood. You already know. Plague. The word moves through the court like smoke under a door, quiet, choking, inescapable. You feel it in your chest before anyone says it aloud. People begin backing away, one by one, careful not to run, careful not to seem afraid. Fear invites attention. Attention invites exile. You reach into your pocket and pull out your last citrus sachet. Dried peel, clove, and myrrh packed tightly in linen. You breathe it in, not because you believe it works, but because it's all you have. The royal physicians flood the hallway minutes later, faces tight, eyes darting. One drops a clove-stuffed pomander on the floor and doesn't bother to pick it up. That's how you know it's real. The court shifts instantly. Handkerchiefs are perfumed and pressed to noses. Gloves are doubled. The chapel is closed. The queen retreats to her countryside lodge with only her most sanitized ladies. Those left behind start boiling vinegar and crushing oranges by the dozen. You help the steward hang pomanders by every door. Orange peels strung with twine, some dipped in honey, others singed lightly over flame. The entire palace begins to reek of bitter sweetness and scorched herbs. Historians still argue whether such efforts had any impact on preventing disease. The answer, of course, is no. But in the absence of antibiotics or understanding, rituals become lifelines. And in this palace, the orange peel becomes a kind of collective incantation. In the queen's abandoned study, you find a pile of dried citrus slices laid out in neat rows. For a moment, you think someone is preserving them like flowers. Then you realize, they're for the sick. A scent offering. Perhaps to the divine. Perhaps to death itself. You pass a lady sitting alone in the music room, her face ghost white. She holds a strip of lemon peel to her temple and murmurs a prayer you don't recognize. Her sister died last week. You do not sit beside her. You do not need to. The apothecary reappears, arms full of copper distillers and jars of citrus tincture. He's already begun mixing emergency doses, orange oil and camphor, quick brewed and burned in small copper bowls. You help him light them. The air turns sharp and metallic, and your eyes water. But still, you breathe it in. A priest arrives, asking for citrus to mix with the anointing oil. If the soul must leave, he says quietly, let it leave cleansed. You hand him the last of your Seville peels. He bows, and you watch him go. You catch sight of the orange boy in the stairwell, silent as ever. He holds a small pouch, tied tight. Inside it, you guess, is the strongest orange he owns. He presses it to a coughing servant's hand, then vanishes before anyone can thank him. You return to your chamber that night and seal the door. You line the windowsill with dried orange rinds. A foolish ritual. A feudal wall. But it's all you have. You don't know if the air is truly poisoned. But you know how it smells. And tonight, the citrus almost cuts through the fear. Historians still debate whether the plague returned because of rats, or ships, or bad royal policy. But no one questions the memories. Every survivor you've met remembers the smell. Oranges, vinegar, smoke. The scent of death being chased, poorly, by something sweeter. You lie down, citrus pressed beneath your pillow. You dream of orchards. Not here. Somewhere warm. Somewhere safe. Somewhere very, very far from Tudor England. You wake to the sound of soft laughter, perfume, and the gentle scrape of a silver spoon against porcelain. You're in the Queen's private sitting room now, or at least allowed near it, where the world smells like beeswax, velvet, and orange blossoms. This is where the women of the court reign. No bloodied boots or clanging swords here. Just a quiet kind of power, one measured in whispers, glances, and the scent left behind on silk gloves. Today, they're gathered around a low table stacked with tiny glass jars and mirror trays. On one end, a lady applies crushed orange peel mixed with almond oil to her cheeks. It tightens the skin, she explains without looking up. On the other, another stirs peel into beeswax for a lip balm she insists is favored by the Queen herself. You settle into a corner, out of the way but within earshot. It's fascinating, like watching a painter work from memory. Each woman has her own recipe, her own ritual. One uses dried zest mixed with crushed pearls. Another heats her peel in wine before straining it into her bath. Historians still argue whether these concoctions had any lasting effects. Some say they were proto-cosmetics. Others insist they were mostly performative, like scented armor for the battlefield of court appearances. Either way, the women believe in them. Fiercely. You notice how they speak of orange peels the way poets speak of muses. It cleanses, says one. It reveals, says another. A third whispers, it protects. From what, no one says. But everyone nods. A maid enters with more supplies, dried zest, honey, lavender buds, and an item that makes the room gasp, a small vial of orange flower water, imported at ruinous cost. The women gather like moths. One dips a finger and touches it to her wrists, then closes her eyes. You catch the look in her expression. Relief. Maybe even longing. The scent must remind her of somewhere, or someone, she no longer names. And then come the stories. One tells of a nobleman who fell in love with her after catching the scent of orange oil in her hair. Another remembers her mother rubbing peel onto her temples before every feast, claiming it brought clarity. A third confesses she leaves orange peel under her pillow, to keep nightmares at bay. You know most of these tales aren't true. But you don't care. Neither do they. Because this isn't about truth. It's about control. In a world where women have little power over their futures, their bodies, or even their marriages, what they can control is how they appear, and how they smell. One lady turns to you suddenly, holding out a jar. Try this, she says. You hesitate. She smiles. Don't worry, it won't make you beautiful. Just interesting. You apply a dab. It's cool, fragrant, with the faintest sting. You don't feel transformed. But you feel seen. That's enough. Later, in the corridor, you see two maids arguing over who gets to keep the rind scraps. I need it for my hands, one says. My feet, says the other. You offer them your pouch. They stare at you like you've offered diamonds. Historians still puzzle over how much autonomy these women truly had. But you see it. Here, in this quiet room, behind painted walls, they craft not just perfume, but persona. They distill strength into scent. You walk away with citrus on your skin, and a better understanding of the most powerful truth in court, that beauty, like orange oil, is both armor and illusion. And in the war of appearances, these women are generals. You're standing in the east corridor now, and it hits you like a perfume-scented brick. An invisible war is being waged, right here, right under everyone's powdered noses. You hear it before you see it, two courtiers locked in an aggressively polite conversation, their fans fluttering like butterflies on edge, each trying to outscent the other. You inch closer. One lady dabs at her neck with a lace handkerchief soaked in clove oil. The other waves a pomander under her nose, a gilded ball swinging from her wrist on a silver chain. And between them? The acrid, lingering sting of citrus peel, fresh, loud, demanding attention. This is a smell battle. The rules are unspoken, but strict. One does not overstep with musk before noon. One never pairs rosemary with bergamot unless morning. And most importantly, one must always smell intentional. Accidents are vulgar. Unbalanced blends. Social suicide. You pretend to admire the tapestry while they duel. Every flick of the fan, every careful wrist turn is calculated. The room begins to feel like a greenhouse teetering on the edge of combustion: clove, lavender, lemon, rose. It's all just a little too much. Historians still argue whether these scent rivalries were taken seriously or simply a form of theatrical court play. But you've watched a baroness retreat in disgrace after being labeled overly spiced. You believe. Another lady enters with a new weapon, crushed orange blossom rubbed into her gloves. It's subtle, almost ghostly. You catch the faintest trace and feel your own pulse change. She floats through the group like mist, and for one moment, everyone hesitates. That's victory. You retreat to a quieter space, the antechamber off the west hallway, where 3 older courtiers sit comparing scent stones. Each one is different. One soaked in citrus oil. Another in dried sage and peel. A third, controversially, infused with frankincense and bitter orange. They murmur disapproval. Too funereal, one says. Smells like Holy Thursday, says another. You ask what they prefer. One shrugs. I carry lemon in summer. Orange in winter. You don't want to confuse the seasons. You nod as if this makes perfect sense. Later, at supper, you watch the dance unfold again. A gentleman leans across the table, his doublet stiff with perfumed starch, and declares that bergamot is the scent of intellectuals. The woman beside him raises an eyebrow and fans herself with orange peel tucked into the folds. Is that so? She says. I suppose the queen is a scholar, then. Laughter. One point to citrus. It's not just vanity. There's strategy in every spritz, every sachet. You hear rumors that ambassadors are trained to identify political leanings by smell. A whiff of lemon balm might mean you're aligned with Norfolk. Too much jasmine. Clearly French. No scent at all. Dangerously dull. You overhear a servant whispering that the Earl of Sussex keeps a pouch of peel in his sleeve purely to counter the musk of the Spanish envoy. Not for diplomacy, just so he can breathe. Historians still puzzle over the extent to which scent dictated hierarchy, but you're watching it unfold in real time. A courtier's scent becomes shorthand for who they are. Sweet. Submissive. Sharp. Calculating. Layered. Dangerous. You slip your own peel out and refresh it discreetly, rubbing a little juice into your palm. It smells bold. Bright. You needed that today. As you pass the Queen's Guard, even they seem to have joined the battle. One smells like lemon soap. Another, oddly, like apple and orange. You don't ask. It's all part of the game. The unspoken tournament of noses and nerves. And tonight, just for once, you feel like you're winning. You drift down the long gallery, heavy with dusk light, where portraits of sour-faced nobles glare down as if they can smell your breath. You're not alone. A courtier walks just ahead, whispering a name you know. A name tied to favor, ambition, and scandal, the Duke of Bedford. And in his hand, not a letter. Not a jewel. But an orange slice, perfectly cut, glistening, held out like an offering. You pause just far enough to observe. The Duke doesn't eat it. He doesn't smell it. He gives it. To whom, you ask? A viscount. Younger, hungrier. One whose lands border a river the crown desperately wants for new shipyards. The moment the slice is placed in the viscount's palm, there's a flicker of understanding. No words. Just citrus. You've just witnessed a peel transaction. You've heard of them. Everyone has. Orange peel is rare enough to carry value, sweet enough to deliver messages. Peel can mean many things. A gift. A bribe. A threat. It all depends on how it's curled, what hand it comes from, and whether it's dried or fresh. Historians still argue whether this form of court gifting was actually coded or simply ornamental flattery. But what else would you call a spiral of zest handed to the treasurer the night before he announces tax pardons? You keep walking, and you notice more, an orange segment placed on a tray just before a marriage proposal. A candied peel slipped discreetly into the queen's gloves by a favorite lady-in-waiting. A servant carrying a bowl of orange slices only to nobles from a certain faction. You stop at a window alcove, and there, two ladies dueling with words so delicate they float. One accuses the other of stealing her fashion. The other replies by unwrapping a silk bundle and revealing a golden orange slice, crystallized and perfect. A gift, she says sweetly. From the Lord Chancellor himself. The room stills. No one has received one of his oranges in months. You don't miss the narrowed eyes. You don't miss the shifting power. And then there's the Queen. She sits in her private box during the masque that evening, her expression unreadable. Her fingers toy with a lace fan, but tucked just beneath it, unmistakable, is a thin twist of dried orange, studded with clove. You know the scent even before it reaches you. And you know what it means. She is watching. She is choosing. No royal proclamation. No scroll. Just scent. Someone behind you whispers that a lord received an orange infused with ginger and orange blossom the week before he was made master of horse. Another lost his status overnight after gifting one that had dried too far, cracked, brittle, a subtle insult. Not all peel is equal. Not all gifts are welcome. You pass a scribe who confides that he once saw a nobleman send 3 orange curls to the queen folded inside a poem. She sent 2 back. No one knows why. He left court the next day and was never seen again. You believe it. You approach the edge of the hall, where a musician plays a slow, spiraling tune. He's chewing orange peel, no doubt a gift from some patron. Even the lute, you realize, is scented with oil. You can smell it on the strings when he presses them. The music hangs in the air like perfume. Historians may roll their eyes. But you know the truth. The Tudor court doesn't speak in just words. It speaks in gestures. In fans. In glances. And in peel. You check your own sleeve. Still there. Fresh enough. Curled just right. And as you breathe it in, you realize something quiet and powerful. This court doesn't run on loyalty or law. It runs on scent. It's early morning, and the palace is unusually quiet, no parading trumpets, no stomping boots, just the rhythmic slap of damp rushes underfoot as you make your way to the lesser hall. You pass through corridors where last night's laughter has curdled into stale wine and candle smoke, and your orange peel is your only defense. You're following a ritual now, one you've seen dozens of courtiers perform without fail. The daily peel routine. You enter the small east-facing gallery just in time to see the first of them begin. A young man, barely old enough to be mocked for his facial hair, sits on a cushioned bench with all the seriousness of a monk. He pulls a small fruit from his pouch, slits the skin with a knife that glints faintly in the morning light, and peels slowly, carefully, so the zest curls in one long spiral. He presses the strip to his wrist, then to his temple, and finally, with a contented sigh, folds it into a square of linen and tucks it into his doublet. That's it. The ceremony is complete. You watch another courtier nearby, older, more rumpled, crack open a dried peel and rub it gently on the inside of his collar. Keeps the breath clean and the court cleaner, he mutters, though you doubt either claim is medically sound. Historians still argue whether this daily ritual had religious undertones or was simply habitual grooming. The timing, the movements, it all carries a faint echo of devotion. In a world filled with danger and uncertainty, a curl of citrus is a moment of quiet control. You follow suit, pulling your own piece from a small pouch. It's slightly too dry, curling stiffly, but the scent is still there, sharp, familiar, like memory pressed into wax. You rub it between your palms and breathe in deeply. The rest of the court begins to arrive, each person with their own variation. One noblewoman pulls out a small silver box containing layered peels infused with herbs. Another uses a strip soaked in almond oil to anoint her fingertips. A servant quietly sprinkles peel shavings into the braziers near the windows, where they sizzle softly and release fragrance into the room. You begin to notice the differences, not just in scent, but in technique. The Norfolk faction favors crushed peel mixed with rosemary. The Queen's inner circle prefers orange soaked in rosewater and stored overnight. The puritanical types use nothing at all and pretend the air doesn't bother them. It's subtle, but it speaks volumes. You pass by a diplomat who carries his peel in a scroll case, rolled tightly, labeled, dated. "So I know where I was by the smell," he tells you. You can't tell if he's joking. There's even a whisper going around of a courtier who slices his peel into the shape of birds. For luck, they say. Or madness. With this court, it's hard to tell. In a back corner, you spot the orange boy again, calm, precise, peeling with surgical grace. But instead of using it, he hands it to an elderly maid who's been coughing all week. She sniffs it gratefully, and her shoulders seem to relax. You wonder how many people he's silently rescued this way. You finish your own ritual. Peel folded. Fingers scented. Sleeves fresh. And for a moment, the day feels manageable. Historians might dismiss these actions as eccentric. But you know better. In a world where food can poison, favor can vanish, and rumors cut deeper than daggers, this morning ritual is not just habit. It's protection. It's presentation. It's prayer, disguised as hygiene. You step into the sunlight. The court awakens around you, smiling, whispering, perfumed and powdered. But underneath it all, you smell it first. Orange. Bitter, bright, and utterly necessary. You are ready. You're walking the long route to the archives now, past shuttered doorways and faded tapestries, to a part of the palace where the ceilings are lower and the whispers linger longer. The scent of parchment and beeswax fills the air, but even here, you catch it, that flicker of orange, clove, and something else, secrecy. You've been summoned by a clerk with unusually clean fingernails and an unnerving smile. He leads you past rows of royal correspondence, hands you a sealed scroll, and vanishes without a word. You unroll it carefully. Inside, a single strip of candied orange peel, cut into an odd geometric shape. Next to it, a short message written in cipher. No signature. Just a small orange blossom drawn at the corner. It's not the first time you've seen something like this. Welcome to peelcraft, the silent art of using citrus as code. You learned about it the way most people do, by accident. A misplaced slice of peel left on the edge of a document. A servant punished for ruining a letter, when in truth he'd just misread the signal. Here in court, nothing is what it seems. Especially not citrus. Historians still argue whether this citrus cipher system ever truly existed or if it's an invention of courtly paranoia. But you've seen too many coincidences, too many orange segments delivered before assassinations, too many dried peels tied to foreign coins, to dismiss it. You return to your quarters and examine the peel closely. It's slightly glazed. The cut is deliberate, sharp. You place it on the coals of your hearth, and slowly, faint writing appears, burned into the surface with clove oil and sunlight. 3 words, he knows everything. You feel a chill that no citrus can mask. You wrap the peel in cloth and hide it in your sleeve. Outside, life continues, courtiers laugh, jesters perform, and the scent of orange drifts through the gallery like a well-told lie. You spend the rest of the day noticing the patterns. A candied slice left on a windowsill. A carved peel tucked into a jeweled shoe. A noble pressing a dried orange flower into another's hand with too much ceremony. You hear that the Queen's spymaster drinks orange peel tea with a twist of wormwood. To remember, he says cryptically. Remember what? No one asks. The orange boy appears again. This time, he leaves a single curl outside the door of the Spanish ambassador. Within an hour, the ambassador requests to return home. No one questions it. You begin to wonder how deep this goes. How many messages were missed, how many friendships formed or betrayed through the curl of a fruit rind. Historians still debate whether the use of peel in espionage was inspired by other scent-based codes, flowers, spices, even perfumed gloves. But the orange has one advantage: it leaves no trace. Once consumed or burned, the message is gone forever. You visit the royal kitchens under the pretense of requesting a sweet. There, the cook nods and hands you a candied peel wrapped in wax paper. Inside, a different kind of message, a request for a meeting. Midnight. West Garden. You don't ask who it's from. You already know. That night, you go. The air is cold. The garden is quiet. A figure steps from the shadows and hands you a fresh orange. No words. Just the fruit. You understand. This is not just fragrance. Not just ritual. Not even fashion. This is currency. Language. Power. In Tudor England, even silence smells like citrus. You're in the outer courtyard now, standing among the swelling crowd. They've gathered for something rare and final, the Queen's last procession through the palace. Elizabeth I has not spoken in days, her body frail, her eyes more memory than fire. Yet even now, the court moves around her with the careful reverence of those who've spent a lifetime orbiting power. The air is still. Heavy. And then it arrives, the scent that has followed her through decades of reign. Orange blossom and oil. 1,000 steps, 1,000 sighs, and always, citrus. They carry her slowly, veiled in white, her gloved hands folded atop her chest. And there, even in stillness, is a twist of dried orange peel tucked into her lace wrist cuff. Her final adornment. Not pearls. Not gold. Not rubies. Just orange. You feel your throat tighten. You weren't prepared for this part. No one is. You glance at the faces around you. Hardened courtiers, cynical ambassadors, weary ladies, all looking toward her. And all of them, each and every one, holding something citrus. A token. A memory. A farewell. Even the orange boy is here. Older now, quiet as ever, standing among the shadows near the chapel. He lifts his hand slightly, and in his palm, a single slice of candied peel. He does not cry. He just closes his fingers around it, and bows his head. Historians still argue whether the Queen chose orange peel for her final moments or if someone placed it there out of tradition. Either way, it fits. She once said, "A queen must be both fragrance and fire." And nothing burns quite like citrus under pressure. You find your own sliver, long ago tucked into your sash, nearly forgotten, and bring it to your lips. The scent is faint now. Dry. But it's enough. A bishop begins the Latin. A child behind you sneezes. A guard tightens his grip on a scented torch. And the wind shifts. For just a moment, the palace no longer smells of stone or sweat or fear. It smells like orange groves under the sun. Like sweetness lingering after bitterness. Like breath at the edge of silence. And in that moment, you understand. The orange peel wasn't just a courtly quirk. It was a ritual. A weapon. A comfort. A warning. A love letter sealed in scent. A defense against rot and ruin. A whisper of life clutched close, even at the edge of death. You step back as the procession ends, the hush lingering in the stones beneath your feet. Somewhere, a maid drops a tray and no one notices. You walk slowly, passing by the places where citrus once ruled, the gallery of gloves, the perfumed banisters, the linen drawers lined with peel. And you realize they're fading. The scent, the meaning, the whole tangled history of oranges in court, it's drifting. But not gone. Not yet. You press the peel one last time to your nose. You breathe in. You remember. And you let it go. And now, the story settles. The corridors are empty, save for soft footfalls echoing into dusk. The torches burn lower. The rushes on the floor rustle only when someone passes gently by. Whatever pageantry filled the court just hours ago has folded into stillness. You find yourself in a forgotten alcove, somewhere warm, dim, safe. The scent of orange lingers faintly on your sleeve. You let it remain. All around, the palace exhales. The battle of perfumes has ended. The rituals are done. And even the whispers, once full of secrets and scandal, have softened into silence. You sit quietly, your back against cool stone, as the night rises outside the narrow window. The candle beside you flickers, not out of fear, but because it's tired too. You close your eyes, letting your thoughts drift like leaves in warm water. There are no more feasts to attend. No more coded peals to decipher. Just you. And this breath. Even the weight of history feels lighter now. All those courtiers, all their rituals, their power plays, faded to scent and memory. A peel left on a page. A curl forgotten in a pocket. You feel sleep tug gently at the edges of your awareness, like a soft hand guiding you back from the world. Let it. There's nothing left to do tonight. Just rest. Just breathe. You made it through the stink and splendor. Through the silence and scent. And now, finally, sweet dreams.